In 1974, Larry De Silva brutally raped and then murdered an 84-year-old woman. After a lengthy trial, he was sentenced to death by means of electrocution. Because of the general outcry against the inhumane method of hanging, the electric chair was the next step in the development of capital punishment. Its premiere was in New York during the year 1890. Larry De Silva would soon join the list of criminals that have died in this fashion.
It's time.
De Silva told me he had read extensively about the method that would take his life. When I asked him if he was afraid, he looked at me and smiled. But when the guards led him down death row toward the execution chamber, De Silva seemed nervous and totally disoriented. He finally told me he was scared to die. When I asked him if he ever thought about this possibility as he murdered the defenseless woman, he replied, "All I wanted was her goddamn wallet, and the bitch gave me a hard time." De Silva's history in crime was a lengthy one. At 34, 17 of those years were spent in and out of penal institutions. Beginning with petty thefts, De Silva finally committed a crime which would cost him his life.
Good luck, Joe. Go straighten your hair right out, Daddy.
The process is simple. The victim is placed in a chair where electrodes are attached to his leg and head. These two areas are sponged down beforehand with a brine solution to conduct electricity. Strapped to a seat that you will never leave alive is a situation that I still cannot justify. A man on death row is in a continuous battle with time and bureaucracy. When both fall into the proper alignment, the condemned knows that death will be the result. During the final preparations, those of us watching this man could feel the fear being transmitted from his body. Even though he had committed an inexcusable crime, I began to wonder if two wrongs really make a right. His eyes are taped to prevent them from popping out of their sockets. The next step is the flick of a switch which sends a current of 2,000 volts through the victim's body. Then the current is brought down to 1,000 volts after a few seconds. By this point, the man is unconscious, and the whole process is repeated as many times as necessary until the prisoner is proclaimed dead by the physician on duty. The room began to smell like burning flesh. After a brief examination, we all knew there was more to come. The final trickle of blood marked the conclusion to this grotesque execution. How much longer will we be plagued by violence within society is a thought I've often pondered. If this is the only solution, humankind must stop and question the whole meaning of justice.